So, how do you create a team meeting? Well, just going into the system and choosing your meeting will get you part of the way because it'll make some of the questions for you. But that's a little bit more of a process. There's a lot of other videos and things like that in the documentation below, but I'm just going to give you the overview and I'll do it as quickly as possible. So, the first thing you need to do is you need to choose your purpose and type of meeting. We'll go into the types of meetings in another video in detail. The first meeting we're going to set up is a daily check-in. After you get that set up, then you'll understand better how to do it. The other types will start to make a lot more sense and things along those lines. But it's really important that there be a good purpose to the meeting. Everybody needs to know what it is. You need to write it down clearly. And I would do this before you actually get people together to create the meeting. For example, a daily check in meeting is almost always created to allow a team to maximize throughput, out production, or something like that for a period of time. It could be a shift, it could be a day, something along those lines. It's designed to look at um, challenges and opportunities that you're going to face that day and then distribute responsibility for taking care of those quickly and efficiently. Daily check in meetings seldom take more than 12 minutes, usually about 8. Um, it, but it also has accountability built right into the meeting. So that's one type of meeting. As I said, we'll go into the other types of meetings at another time. All right. Now, the next thing you have to decide is who should be at the meeting to create your first meeting. Well, you don't want a big team, and generally meetings start at the top of an organization and then they go down. So it's usually like the CEO and the people who report to the CEO, something along those lines. But it doesn't have to be. You very seldom want to create a meeting with everybody who's going to attend. A 5 to 7 people works great. Beyond 7, and it'll make the meeting to create the meeting take much longer. Now, if you're going to have multiple departments and divisions at a meeting, which is quite common, just have one person from each department, at the most two, but one will work. The person just has to have authority to make decisions, and they have to be able, um, they have to know the department that they're in and expect to participate in the meeting. As I said, fewer people the better, but not too few. All right. And it works really good to have one person there who's created a meeting before, but that's not always possible. But it's a good guideline. All right. So then you'll go in the system. You've seen it done on a previous video. You'll create a meeting, in this case, a day master meeting. It's going to put some questions in there for you. But in reality, you want a little bit of a brainstorming to come up with the questions that'll make the meeting most effective. The easiest way to do this, if you get everybody in the same room, is everybody gets a pad of sticky notes, something like that, and you take 10 minutes and you use a timer and there's no discussion at this point. Everybody just writes down the questions that they would like to know regarding the purpose of the meeting for the time frame the meeting's in. So for a daily meeting, it's what do you want to know every day to make your shift or your department work well? And let them write them down. At the end of 10 minutes, you stop. No discussion. And then you go one person at a time, and one person gets to read one question. And you use a timer. You're going to discuss it for 5 minutes. Is this a good question or not? Should it be worded a little bit different? Things along those lines. And then at the end of the 5 minutes, the captain who's ever running the meeting usually decides, yep, we're going to put that one in there. And you add it to the meeting checklist. And you know how to do that inside the system. Um, and you continue to go around the everybody who's there getting one question at a time. Well, the reason you put them on sticky notes is because one person will read a question and then another person will have a very similar question. In the 5 minutes, they'll come up with one that meets them both, and then the other person throws their question away. And you do this, and you won't have to go that many times around, and you'll get all the questions you want. And the first time you create a meeting, it has too many questions. Don't worry about it. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Put them in there, and then as you use the meeting, you'll throw out a question, or you'll combine two questions, or something along those lines. Just get some brainstorm, some questions to put in there. All right. And that part of the meeting will take longer than you think it should, but it'll be fine. All right. Just use the timer to limit the time. Okay. And if you have problems coming up with some questions, there are questions to ask the group in the documentation below. All right. And then there's also in that documentation a place where it talks about the different types of questions. Go ahead and bring that document up and watch the video if you want. You'll understand it very, very quickly. So then in a meetings almost always start with a couple of organizational wide non-negotiables. There are a couple of things like, is there a safety issue that anybody's concerned about? Is there a quality issue that everybody's concerned about? Something along that line. And it's pretty consistent that every meeting starts with those two really important things. And then you get into the other questions that you just came up with. So hopefully you come up with this list of questions, and then you you go back through the list and you ask a few questions. Does this question, for every question on the list, you'll checklist question, you'll ask, does the question fit our purpose? Is it at the right group? I mean, is this a question for this group of people? Have we asked a similar question previously? Can we combine them? Are these questions in the right order? And is it actionable? In other words, can we actually do something? Is the question in there for a good reason? And then lastly, and these will be created for you, but you can change them or add to them. The meeting ends with what we call meeting control questions. The first one is something to the effect of, is anybody overwhelmed or unsure? And then the next one is, are there any late tasks? And then you go to the task and you'll 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 check out whether they're late or not, things along those lines. That's where the accountability comes in. If a task is late, that's the point at which you would say, when can we expect this to be done? And do you need any help? And that public square accountability will work really good. But you leave that question in your checklist so that it gets done every time. And then that makes the accountability systematic. Usually teams leave a question in there about teammate recognitions. Not every person does. There's a way to create recognitions. You'll see there's a tab for it in the meeting. And then you pretty much get down to, well, who's going to run the next one? Because I would take turns running it. Don't have the same people running the meeting every time. And then, is there anything that prevents us from moving to a hard break? A hard break means anybody can leave without it being a career limiting move. Because oftentimes meetings take way too long, because at the end of the meeting, someone wants to tell this story or that story, and everybody else feels like they'd be rude if they leave. So you end the meeting with that question, and when that question is, answered no, it means there's nothing more to discuss. Anybody who wants to leave can leave, and nobody has their feelings hurt or holds it against them. So that's the questions. Lastly, you decide the logistics of it. And again, there's notes for all these things in the documentation, and even some videos to handle it in particular. But you need to decide who's going to attend the meeting, when the meeting's going to be held, where it's going to be held, that type of thing. And it doesn't take much. You just run it, and then go run the meetings. Go have them and adjust things over time. Start out with a good meeting. You may think the first few times that it's terrible. It's not. Don't worry about it. Run it, go, and change it as you go. And that's really all there is to it. Thanks.